Good afternoon, one and all. Yesterday we have discussed with research problem, selection of research problem and research design. So unit 2 almost we have completed with some end concept which is remaining, that is important experimental design. We'll just brush up that and go with unit 3, sample design. So few important experimental design, we have seen that it comes with informal experimental design. There are two types, two categories, informal experimental design and formal experimental design. In informal experimental design, you have before and after without control design, after only with control design, before and after with control design. So we have seen all the flow chart with that, how the test area, the treatment is introduced, level of phenomena before the treatment and level of phenomenon after the treatment. After only with control design, it has got the flow chart with test control and control area, test area and control area, and level of phenomena after treatment and without treatment. So before and after with control design we have seen, where you have both test area and control area, level of phenomena before treatment and treatment is introduced, and then it is checked with the time period to the level of phenomena after the treatment. Okay, these are some CR method, RB design, LS design and factorial designs are some formal experimental designs, okay, where we need to concentrate more on complex factorial design. Okay, experiments with more than 2 factors at a time involve the use of complex factorial design. So if factors are more and the variables consisting more in group leads to complex, a design which considers 3 or more independent variables simultaneously is called as complex factorial design. At that time you have a matrix of 2 into 2 complex factorial design which will have total 8 cells. Okay, you can see here experimental variable, you have got total 8 cells. At control treatment A you have got 4 cells, treatment B you have got 4 cells, control variable level 1 and level 2. Clear? So if you see the pictorial presentation or the flowchart of that, the figure 3.14, you can see the control variable 1 and control variable 2 with treatment A and treatment B experimental variables. Okay, so this is how it looks. So complex factorial design, if you can clearly see in this picture with treatment A and treatment B with control variable level 1, control variable level 2 and cells 8. Okay, so this is the conclusion where there are several research design and researcher must decide in advance of collection and analysis of data as to which design would prove to be more appropriate for his research project. So he must give due weight to various points, the type of universe and its nature, the objective of a study, the resource list or the sampling frame, desired standard of accuracy and the like when taking a decision in respect of the design for his research project. So various research designs are available before deciding or before having collection of the data and analysis of the data. One can go with the different research designs, clear, and have their own research design properly. So the developing a research plan. So after identifying and defining a problem, as also accomplishing the relating task, researcher must arrange his ideas in order to write them in the form of an experimental plan or what can be described as research plan. So he is going to have his own schedule, he is going to have his own plan. So he'll organize the things how it is going to take place. So I've given a simple example that the start point and end point, if you know, then you should have the stages where you are. You should plan for the stages. After objectives, if you have got methodology, after reviewing the literature, you have got methodology, after that methodology, you have got research plan, then you have got experimental data, then execution. So this is how it goes. It helps to organize his ideas in the form whereby it is possible for him to look for flaws and inadequacies. It provides an inventory of what must be done and what materials have to be collected as a preliminary step. It is a document that can be given to others for comment. A research plan must contain the following items. The research objective should be clearly stated in a line or two which tells exactly what it is that the researcher expects to do. The problem to be studied by researcher must be explicitly stated so that one may know what information is to be obtained for solving the problem. Each major concept which researcher wants to measure should be defined in operational terms in context of research project. And the plan should contain the method to be solved in solving the problem. These are some following items which a research plan should possess. Okay, the plan must also state the details of the technique to be adopted. A clear mention of the population to be studied should be made. The plan must also contain the methods to be used in processing the data. Results of pilot test, if any, should be reported. Time and cost budget for the research project should also be prepared and laid down in plan itself. Okay, so this is all about research design. So moving with the sampling design, you have got the unit 3, that is sampling design. So you come across census and sampling survey. You have got implications of sample design, steps in sampling design, criteria of selecting a sampling procedure. You have got characteristics of good sample design, different types of sample design, how to select a random sample from an infinite universe, complex random sampling design. So till here, complex sample design, random sample design, till here today I'll try to finish off. The next class we can have with data collection, and we'll go with different type of errors. Okay, interviews which a researcher can carry out. Later at the last stage, last unit, you have IPR, intellectual property right, you have got patents, you have got copyright, how to write a technical report. This is very important. I'll concentrate more on this part. Okay, and interpretation, significance of report writing, different steps in report writing, layout of research report, types of reports, oral presentation, mechanism of writing research report. These all are included in unit number 5. So after knowing what is objective, what is research, what is importance, research process, research statement, selecting the problem, necessity in defining problem, need for research design, everything, we can enter into the unit 3, that is sample design. What is the sampling design? What is the census and sample survey? All items in any field of an inquiry constitute a universe or population. A complete enumeration of all items in population is known as census inquiry. So we are talking in terms of global level here. Okay, we are talking in terms of universe, you are talking in terms of population. So we may not understand what this exactly they are saying, sampling design. Later with some examples I'll tell what is this exactly mean. Okay, it can be presumed that in such an inquiry, when all items are covered, no element of chance is left and highest accuracy is obtained. But in practice, this may not be true. Even the slightest element of bias in such an inquiry will get larger and larger as the number of observation increases. Okay, so what he is saying is constituting a universe or population and having or presuming that all such inquiries, all such items are covered in that part. Okay, that is what he says. It is census or sample survey. Okay, simple example is you go with population census. Okay, survey of population. What happens? Plus or minus 10% error you find. So they calculate how many what is the population, how many birth, what is the death rate, what is the birth rate, how many males, how many females. So you come to know what is the other census. Okay, same way you have got census of economy. You can have census of any other parameter. Okay, so this is a chapter where we are dealing in broad sense, not in only in related to civil part, but in broad sense we are dealing. When we are talking about population, it is include entire thing. Okay, it's talking in terms of universe or population, it include everything. Okay, I'll not only prescribe with concrete or I'll not say only structural part. It may include each and every item involved in that field or involved in that string. Clear? Besides, this type of inquiry involves a great deal of time, money and energy. This is of course the important parameter when a researcher or a person is doing his work, okay, or carrying out his project or carrying out his idea. The prominent role is time, money and energy. Okay, nobody wants to waste this time, money and energy, because these are the three factors which are going to account a large in matter. Okay, your energy, your time and money plays an important role. Therefore, when a field of inquiry is large, this method becomes difficult to adopt because of resources involved. Okay, when you are saying your sample is very big, right, your design is very big, okay, your inquiry is very large, it becomes difficult to adopt because of sources involved. For example, when you are going with, okay, a large mega project and you have got thousands together laborers, clear, thousands together engineers, thousands together designers, right, and large area of construction, carpet area is very large, the materials requirement is very large, okay, the resources involved is huge, the technicality, the content is large. At that time, adopting the methods becomes little bit tough because managing everything is not that easy. Clear? You have to take care of labor, you have to take care of money, you have to take care of the what you call materials, you have to take care of designs, you have to take care of construction, scheduling, everything come in that. Perhaps government is the only institution which can get the complete enumeration carried out, because why these projects are carried out by central government or state government is they have got everything with them. Okay, one individual cannot construct. I alone cannot construct a dam, right? I alone cannot construct a college. I alone cannot construct a mall. Okay, there are some projects which government have to take care. It is only one body which can handle these type of designs with taking care of time, money, energy. Okay, even the government adopts this is very rare cases such as population census conducted once in a decade. Further, many times it is possible to examine every item in population, and sometimes it is possible to obtain sufficiently accurate results by studying only a part of total population. Okay, in such cases there is no utility of census survey. What it says further, many times it is not possible to examine every item in the population. Everything in a population which you are taking care cannot be handled with a single term or at a single moment. Okay, sometimes it is possible to obtain sufficiently accurate results by studying only a part of total population. Okay, sometimes what happens, only on sample study you may get the results. You cannot take entire global level and study. When field studies are undertaken in practical life, consideration of time and cost almost invariably lead to selection of respondents, selection of only few items. Okay, so when field studies are taken care or in a practical life, what happens? Time and cost almost invariably lead to selection of respondents. So that plays an important role. Okay, the selected respondents constitute what is technically called a sample, and the selection process is called sampling technique. Okay, if you are technically selecting a sample selected by respondent, so that process is called sampling technique. The survey so conducted is known as sample survey. Implication of sample design. What is this implication? What is the use of this sample design? It is a definite plan. Okay, it is a as research design is a flowchart, your sample design is a definite plan. Now you are going into accurate part, accurate way. You can see a clear picture. When you talk about research design, it is only a flowchart, it is only a methodology. For example, you are starting the project at this date and finalizing the project at this. You have got these many number of cubes, you are testing, you are doing this, so on, mixed design. So you have got on a flowchart. But sample design is a definite plan for obtaining a sample from given population. It refers to the technique or the procedure that researcher would adopt in selecting items for the sample. So it is proper plan which is going to put into practicality, referring to a technique, procedure, and selecting the items. Clear? Now what happens? You clearly state, this is the code book I am going to use. This is set of cubes I am going to cast. This is water cement ratio I am going to use. This is the final sample design. Okay, research design is only tentative. You have got a flowchart. You are doing this. Alright, it may vary at any moment of time. But sample design is one, you have got definite plan. Okay, with the numbers, with the figures, with clear idea. Okay, sample design may as well as lay down the number of items to be included in the sample, that is the size of sample. Sample design is determined before data are collected. So this is somewhat in general you are finalizing the size. Size in the sense is nothing but quantity. What is the quantity you are going to choose for that sample design before going for data collection. For example, if I take mixed design again, a concrete, before going for material collection, you are finding out the exact size, the specimens, alright, a number of items, number of things involved in that design. Okay. So steps in sample design. This is the general terms which we are referring here. It is not to this specific field. While developing the sample design, the researcher must pay attention to the following points. First step is to define the objectives of survey in clear terms. Okay. First and foremost step is to find the objectives of survey, which should be in a clear picture. Next, you have got type of universe. The first step in developing any sample design clearly defines set of objects technically called as universe to be studied. Type of universe. What is the type of universe? Entire area what you are. For example, you are going with high performance concrete. You should know what you are going to do in the high performance concrete. When you are going for high strength concrete, you should know what you are going to do in high strength concrete. If you are going with self-compacting concrete, you should have that broad area of thing. Okay. The universe can have finite or infinite. The finite universe, the number of items are certain, but in case of infinite universe, the number of items are infinite. In the universe, it is infinite. We cannot have any idea about total number of items at the initial stage. So that is why it is bifurcated as finite and infinite. After the type of universe, you have got sampling unit. Okay, what will be the unit of your sampling? A decision has to be taken concerning a sample unit before selecting a sample. Sampling unit may be geographical ones such as state, district, village, construction unit such as house, flat. I have given an example clearly. It may be a social unit such as family, club, school, or any individual. Okay, that particular unit should be defined at the initial stage. If you are going for geographical area, which is the state you are studying, which is the district you are studying, which is the village you are going to take. If it is any other constructional unit, which is the house, which is the flat, which is the site, that should be clearly indicated. Okay. Next comes the source list. It is also known as sampling frame from which sample is to be drawn. It contains the name of all items of universe. Okay. It is a sampling frame where the sample is being drawn. It is only a list. Okay. Size of sample. This refers to the number of items to be selected from the universe to constitute a sample. That is a major problem before a researcher. Okay, size. So you have to finalize the size. That all depends on your design. So that is not an easy task. The optimum sample is one which fulfills all the requirements. Again, here comes the efficiency, talks about reliability, flexibility. So this part is crucial to the researcher. The size of sample. That is not that easy task. Okay. While deciding the size of sample, the researcher must consider the following factors. Desired precision as also an acceptable confidence level for the estimate, the size of population, variance, all these parameters. So till source list it is okay, but size of sample when you come, you have to be little bit cautious. Okay. Next comes is parameter of interest. In determining sample design, one must consider the question of specific population parameter which are of interest. Okay. Here proportion of person with some characteristic population, average or other measure concerning the population. This is the parameter of interest. For example, if you are going with any parametric study, for example, you take a multi-story building, okay, you are talking in terms of its slenderness ratio, you are talking it in terms of its ductility, its stiffness, you are talking in terms of its height, you are talking in terms of its shear wall, these comes the parameter, okay. In that sample design, this parameter of interest, this should be clarified clearly. Budgetary constraint, cost consideration from practical point of view have a major impact upon decisions relating to not only the size of sample but also on the type of sample. So budgetary constraint is nothing but coming to the cost, right? So what is the cost involved, the project, okay, how much is it? Previously you should know that, okay. Sampling procedure. Finally, the researcher must decide the type of sample he will use. He must decide about the technique to be used in selecting the item for the sample. Ultimately, the sampling procedure will frame once these all parameters are clear. Once your type of universe is selected, okay, type of universe I have given, the area where you are going to work, self-compacting concrete or analyze and design of multi-story buildings, that area or that population to be described at the initial stage, okay. If that is done, then you are specifying the unit, then you are specifying the source list, then you are specifying size of sample. This is not that easy task. Next comes is parameters of interest, budgetary constraint, last comes is sampling procedure. You are going to have the clear sampling procedure or sample design. Okay. What are the criteria of selecting a sample procedure? What criteria you are going to take care here is the two costs are involved in sampling analysis, the cost of collecting the data and cost of incorrect inference resulting from the data. Two causes of incorrect inferences are systematic bias and sampling error. Okay. So when you are having a sample design, when you are going for selecting the sample design, you have got two major cost considerations, that is cost of collecting the data, okay, how much cost is required for collecting your data, and cost of an incorrect inference resulting from the data. Whatever error comes out from that data, rectify that to infer that what is the cost involved? Okay. Two causes of incorrect inferences are systematic bias and sampling error. Okay. If there is bias and error, so your cost will be in problem. For example, I shall give an example of again a construction field where you are going to buy some materials and you are spending like 10 lakh rupee in that materials. Okay. That 10 lakh rupees, whatever you are going to spend the materials is from the party which you have to get that material and dump on the site. Okay, it includes everything, transportation, it includes material requirement, it includes your scheduling, estimation, everything. Now what happens? Once you pay 10 lakh rupee and everything is done, you cannot say the collected data or the collected materials are perfect. Maybe the material quantity what you have ordered had come less, or there may be some impurities in the material, or the materials provided by the company or the agent is not up to the mark. Some errors are caused, some bias or the errors are caused. Maybe if you lose 20,000 in that, okay, and your cost of collecting the data was 10 lakh and the loss is around 20 to 50,000, right? That criteria or that thing to be considered when you are going with sampling procedure, you should come to know that. Clear? Systematic bias. Systematic bias results from errors in sampling procedure and it cannot be reduced or eliminated by increasing sample size. Systematic bias is a result of the following factors: inappropriate sampling frame, defective measuring device, non-respondents, indeterminacy principle, natural bias in reporting of data. These are the factors which are including in the systematic bias. He says it cannot be reduced. You cannot rectify it nor reduce nor eliminate by increasing the sample size. You cannot say that I'll return your material back and pay back my 10 lakh rupee. That cannot happen. What is left is only you have to identify what are the factors. Maybe your sampling frame, your order was wrong, your defective measuring device, non-respondent, determinacy principle, natural bias in the responding. See, these are the factors where systematic bias are, in systematic bias it is included. Next comes a sampling error. Sampling errors are random variations in the sample estimates around true population parameters. Okay, these errors are caused in the sample estimates around true population. Okay, sampling error decreases with increase in size of the sample. Okay, sampling error decreases with increase in size of the sample. So it doesn't mean that you go on increasing the size and your error will reduce. No, that is also not the case. Okay, what is this? And it happens to be smaller magnitude in case of homogeneous population. Okay, the size it depends upon the size of sample, and it happens to be a smaller magnitude in case of homogeneous population. Sampling error can be measured from a given sample design and size. The measurement of sampling error is usually called precision of sampling plan. Okay, thus the effective way to increase precision is usually to select a better sampling design which has smaller sampling error for a given sample size at a given cost. So ultimately, what is the thing? You should have a smaller magnitude size or smaller size which has less error, which gives better sampling design and which has economical range. Okay. In brief, while selecting a sampling procedure, researcher must ensure that procedure causes relatively small sampling error and helps to control systematic bias in better way. So this is in general how we can control and how to decrease the error. Okay. There are some characteristics of good sample design. What it should be, it must be truly representative sample. Representative sample is nothing but a practically applicable sample. Okay, something you have designed and it cannot be put into the condition. Second, the sample design must be such a way that results in small sampling error. So errors should be less. It should be truly representative sample which can be practically be implemented. Okay, sample design must be viable in the context of funds available for the researcher study. The third one, of course, after error you have got time and money. Sample design must be such that systematic bias can be controlled in better way. So whatever if there is a bias with such factors already in the previous slide I have shown, that can be made controlled in better way. Samples should be such that the results of sample study can be applied in general for universe with reasonable level of confidence. So see that these are some characteristics of good sample design. So different types of sample designs based on two factors: the representation basis and the element selection technique. On the representation basis, the sample may be probability sampling and non-probability sampling. This is very important concept which we need to concentrate. What is probability? Non-probability. Probability sampling is based on concept of random selection, whereas non-probability sampling is non-random sampling. Okay, randomly items, it is probability sampling. If it is non-random, then it is non-probability. On element selection basis, sample may be either unrestricted or restricted. When each sample element is drawn individually from the population at large, then sample is drawn to be unrestricted. So we'll not going to deal with unrestricted and restricted because we'll stick up with probability and non-probability. So what is this probability and non-probability? Element selection technique, unrestricted sampling. You can see in probability sampling you have got simple random sampling, whereas in non-probability you have got haphazard sampling or convenience sampling. Restricted sampling, you have got complex random sampling such as cluster sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling. In non-probability you have got purposive sampling such as quota sampling and judgment sampling. One by one we'll deal what are these. Okay. Non-probability sampling, deliberate, purposive and judgment sampling. Non-probability sampling is that sampling procedure which does not afford any basis for estimating the probability that each item in population has been included in the sample. In these items, for the sample are selected deliberately by the researcher, his choice concerning the item remains supreme. In other words, under non-probability sampling, the organizers of the inquiry purposively choose the particular units of universe for constituting a sample on the basis that a small mass that they so select out of huge one will be typical or representative of the whole. Okay, there are some demerits of non-probability. Okay, you can go through that. Okay, judgment of organizer of study plays important role. Personal element has a great chance of entering into selection of sample. The investigator may select a sample which shall yield results favorable to his point of view. Danger of bias entering into this type of sampling technique. Okay, in probability sampling, what happens? You can see random sampling or chance sampling. Here every item of universe has equal chance of inclusion in the sample. Okay. So thus the results obtained from probability or random sampling can be assured in terms of probability, that is we can measure errors of estimation or significance of results. Okay. We'll define what is a simple random sampling. A random sampling from finite population refers to that method of sample selection which gives each possible sample combination an equal probability of being picked up and each item in entire population to have an equal chance of being included in the sample. Okay. What is it? A random sampling from finite population refers to that method of sample selection which gives each possible sample combination an equal probability. That is why it comes under probability sampling, where you have each and equal item has got its own importance. Okay. It is not biased, it is not non-probability, it is probability sampling. Okay. It gives each element in population equal probability to get into sample and all choices are independent of each other. Okay. It gives each possible sample combination an equal probability of being chosen. Okay. Every item has got its importance, it is been included. For example, you take any parameter, okay, and when you are doing a parametric analysis, when each parameter is given the same equal importance, all 6 parameters or 5 parameters are given same equal importance, then they come under simple random sampling. Clear? If any of the parameter is missed out, it is not given any chance, that time it is non-probability, it is not probable. Okay, one example he has given that the finite population consisting of 6 elements, he says small a, b, c, d, e, f, n is 6. Suppose that we want to take a sample of size n is equal to 3. Okay, sample size is 3, elements are 6. So what happens? 6 into 3, okay, 6C3, okay, is equal to 20 possible distinctions. The elements are 6, sizes are 3. Okay, how many combinations you can make? 20 possible distinct samples of required size can be made and they constitute element. You can see you can have ABC or ABD, ABE, ABF, ACD, ACE, ACF, ADE, ADF, AEF, BCD, BCE, BCF, BDE, BDF, BEF, CDE, CDF, CEF and DEF. 20 possible distinctions can be made with 6 elements and 3 sample sizes. Okay. If we choose one of these samples in such a way that each has the probability of 1 by 20 of each being chosen, then we can call it as a random sampling. So 1 by 20, each one will play a role, each one will have its own importance. Okay, this is one example how to select a random sample, okay, from finite universe. Okay, so these combination. One example he has given. Generally, a Tippett random number table are used for the purpose. Tippett gave 10,400 four figures number. He had 41,600 digits from the census report and combined them into 4 to give his random numbers, which may be used to obtain random samples. So these many combinations he have carried out. Okay. A random sample for an infinite universe. One example is given here. Suppose we consider 20 throws of a fair dice as a sample from hypothetical infinite population, which consists of results of all possible throws of dice. What happens? If probability of getting a particular number, say 1, is the same for each throw and 20 throws are all independent, then we say that sample is random. In brief, one can say that selection of each item in random sample from an infinite population is controlled by same probabilities, and that successive selections are independent of one another. From infinite universe, you can even have random selection. Next comes is complex random sampling design. They represent a combination of probability and non-probability procedures. Okay, in that you have systematic sampling. In this, sampling method is to select each ith item on the list, an element of randomness introduced into this kind of sampling by using random numbers to pick up the unit with which to start. Okay, the example is gone. This is complex random sampling, in that systematic sampling. Okay. For example, for instance, if a 4% sample is desired, the first item would be selected randomly from the first 25, and thereafter 25th item would be automatically be included in the sample. Systematic. So sampling is, even though the sampling design is complex, the systematic sampling is done here. Okay. So these are some merits and demerits of systematic sampling. Next comes is stratified. Word itself is saying that if population from which sample is to be drawn do not constitute homogeneous group. Stratified is nothing but distributed or dispersed. Systematic sampling is, it is organized one. Stratifying is nothing but you have got stratas or you have got subpopulations. Clear? Under stratified sampling, the population is divided into several subpopulations that are individually more homogeneous than the total population, and then we select items from each stratum to constitute a sample. Okay. Since each stratum is more homogeneous than total population, we are able to get more precise estimates for each stratum, and by estimating more accurately each of the component parts, we get better estimate of the whole. Okay. These are some consideration of strata, how you do that. Okay. One example is given here. Okay. So this is a formula where you are going for systematic stratified sampling. Ni is equal to n, Ni sigma I divided by n1 sigma 1 plus n2 sigma 2, so on. Okay, one example is solved. This is very important. The population is divided into 3 strata, so that n1 is 5,000, n2 is 2,000, n3 is 3,000, respective standard deviation. So this is very important numerical. Remember, sigma 1 deviations are given. Sigma 1 has 50, sigma 2 has 18, sigma 3 has 5. How should a sample size n is equal to 84 be located with 3 strata? Okay, size of sample is given and he is giving the strata rate 3. If you want optimum allocation using disproportionate sampling design. Okay, so sample size for strata n1 we have 5,000, clear. n2 we have 2,000, n3 we have 3,000, sigma 1 to 3 we have got. Okay. Applying the previous formula n1 ni sigma I, using this formula, you can find the sample size or what is that, ni is your optimum allocation or your strata stratified strata deviance. Okay, deviation or deviance. Okay. So n1 is 50, n2 is 24, n3 is 10. So n1, n2, n3 deviations you can find out. Okay. When there is difference in stratum size, now in size itself is there is a difference. Okay, at that time, what you are going to do is with this formula. Okay, C1 is cost of sampling in stratum 1, C2 is cost of sampling in stratum 2, Ck is cost of sampling in stratum k. Next comes is cluster sampling. If the total area of interest happens to be a big one, a convenient way in which a sample can be taken is to divide the area into number of smaller non-overlapping areas and then to randomly select a number of these smaller areas, usually called clusters. Cluster sampling is nothing but you are going to choose clusters, okay, samples out of the entire population, divide it into number of relatively small subdivisions, and these clusters are used to involve in the sample. Okay. Suppose we want to estimate a proportion of machine parts in an inventory which are defective. We assume that 20,000 machine parts in an inventory at a given point of time stored in 400 cases of 50 each. Now using a cluster sampling, we would consider 400 cases as clusters and randomly select n cases and examine all the machine parts in each randomly selected case. Next comes is area sampling. If cluster happen to be some geographic subdivisions, in that case cluster sampling is better known as area sampling. Okay, if clusters happen to be some geographical division, when you are taking a case study, then you cannot have clusters, you should have area sampling. Okay. Then comes multi-stage sampling, where for the development of principle of cluster sampling and you want to investigate the working efficiency of nationalized bank in India, we want to take samples of few banks, multi-stage. So you can have multiple stages of sampling in this. Okay. So at the first stage you select a primary sample of each state in a country, or even you can take a district and study the bank survey of that bank. Then later you can go with state level, then you can go with country level. Okay. Then we may select certain districts and then interview all the banks in the chosen district. Then we'll go with the higher one, higher area. That it comes under multi-stage sampling. Okay. We have 3-stage sampling, 4-stage sampling. We have multi-stage sampling. Okay. There are some advantages. Sampling with probability proportion to size. In case of cluster sampling, units do not have the same number or approximately the same number of elements. It is considered appropriate to use random selection process, where the probability of each cluster being included in sample is proportional to size of the cluster. Okay, this is some idea, some example what is being shown. Okay, some departmental stores in 15 cities, and we have to select 10 stores using cities as clusters and selecting within clusters proportional to size. How many stores from each city should be chosen? Using a starting point 10. Okay, you can pick one number and then start selecting the items from the number of departmental stores and cumulative total. Okay. Sequential sampling. The sampling design is somewhat more complex sample design. The ultimate size of the sample under this technique is not fixed in advance, but is determined according to mathematical decision rules on the basis of information yielded as survey progresses. Okay. So what we have done today, we have completed with sample design, we have completed with census and sampling survey, implication of sample design steps we have done, criteria of characteristics, different types we have done, complex random sampling design. Till there we have done. In complex we have got all these things. Okay. Stratified, complex random sampling designs. We have got systematic sampling, we have got stratified, we have got cluster, we have got area sampling, and we have got sequential sampling. Next to that comes is unit 4. Just I'll give some introduction part. In the next class we can continue with the unit 4 thoroughly. We have got data collection, I feel. Okay. We have data collection, interpretation, report writing. It is taken care in unit 5. Unit 4 we have got survey, errors in survey and all. Okay. So if possible, I think it is better to complete even method of data collection. Hardly we have left with 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. So I can cover this part. Next class I'll brush up this and go with unit number 4. So next comes is data collection. In research process, you know that the task of data collection. What is the data collection is? It is the content or the parameters which you are going to consider in your research. Okay, you are doing the literature survey. and if it is a part of survey work, then your collection of data start. Okay, the task of data collection begins after a research problem has been defined and research design after plan. Okay, for example, if you are going with some survey work or some field study, then data collection is very important. For example, you can have a survey of industrial sectors. You can go and get that people feedback. You can go and get that what is the disaster management. For example, if there is earthquake, you can have records from the government. These data collection will come under primary and secondary. A primary data are those which are collected afresh and for the first time and thus happens to be original one. For example, if I want any field data for earthquake, I go to the department and just collect the fresh data from that department, asking them what was the cause, how it has taken place, what was the magnitude, what was the losses, everything, then it comes under primary data. Secondary data on the other hand, those which have already been collected by someone else and which have already been passed through statistical process. For example, somebody has already collected that data, okay, and surveyed it, and he has done some work and he has published some work, and I am using that person work. Then it becomes secondary collection data collection. Clear? These to be decided by researcher, which is going on, whether you want a primary data collection or secondary data is enough. Okay, we collect primary data during the course of doing experiment in our experimental research, but in case we do research of the descriptive type and perform survey methods, observation, interview, questionnaire, schedules. This is what I was discussing with you people during the discussion with course activity, where we'll collect some data or some type of solutions which you have you'll ask some queries or questions to that author by mail and get the answer or doubt through that. That is primary contact, that is primary data. Okay. Other methods which include warranty card, distributed audits, pantry audits, consumer panels using mechanical device, so productive technique, depth interview and content analysis. These are some other methods where you do. Okay. In an experiment, the investigator measures the effects of experiment which he conducts intentionally. Okay. Survey refers to the method of securing information concerning a phenomena under study from all or a selected number of respondents of the concerned universe. Okay. There is small flowchart showing survey and experiment. Survey can be studied through, experiment should be determined, possible relation between the data and known knowns in the universe is economy, psychology and others. Okay. Difference between survey and experiment. Surveys are conducted in case of descriptive research studies. Okay. If your study is descriptive type and you have to explain each and every parameter, then you need survey. Okay. For example, I had given you are going for bund work or you are going with earthquake study, you are going with any case study or field study, then survey is required. When you are doing experimental part in only a prescribed laboratory, it comes under experimental research study. Survey method gathers data from a relatively large number of cases at particular time. It is essentially cross-sectional. Surveys are concerned which describing, recording, analyzing, interpreting conditions that either exist or existed. Surveys are usually appropriate in case of social and behavioral sciences because many types of behavior that interest the researcher cannot be arranged in a realistic setting. Surveys are an example of field research, whereas experiments generally constitute an example of laboratory research. Okay, there are some points which they have been used. Next comes is observation method. Under the observation method, the information is sought out by way of investigator own direct observation without asking from the respondent. So, if I am going to observe the things and I am writing, that comes under observation method. You are not depending on a person who is carried out that experiment. I am not asking him, but I am doing it, I am studying it and observing the things and interpreting. For instance, in a study relating to consumer behavior, the investigator, instead of asking the brand of wristwatch used by the respondent, may himself look at the watch. Okay, advantages. Subjective bias is eliminated if observation is done accurately. Okay, there will be no error, no biasing because directly I am observing the things and directly I am noting down. The information obtained under this method relates to what is currently happening. It is not complicated by either past behavior or future. Alright. At that moment, I'm also observing the things. At that moment, I'm recording. I am not making complication by what has happened in the past and what happens in the future. I'm not taking the tension of all those things. Okay. This method is independent of respondent willingness to respond, and as such is relatively less demanding of active cooperation on the part of respondent. And this method is particularly suitable in studies which deal with subjects which are not capable of giving verbal reports of their feelings for one reason or the other. Okay. Structured observation. In case of observation is characterized by careful definition of units to be observed, the style of recording the observed information, standardized condition of observation and selection of pertinent data of observation, then the observation is called structured observation. Structured observation is also considered as descriptive study because the observation is characterized by careful definition of units to be observed. So it is properly structured, properly planned, properly derived. Okay. Unstructured observation. When one observation is taken place without these characteristics to be taught in the advance, in the term as unobserved observation. Unstructured observation is considered appropriate in exploratory study. Okay. Unstructured is nothing but some sort of bias is there, some sort of errors are included. Participant observation. If the observer observes by himself, making himself more or less a member of a group, he is observing so that he can experience what the members of group experience. The observation is called participant observation. Okay. Non-participant observation. But when the observer observes as detached emissary without any attempt on his part to experience through participation what other feels, the observation of this type is often termed as non-participant observation. Controlled observation. When observation takes place according to definite pre-arranged plan involving experimental procedure, it is controlled. Uncontrolled is nothing but there is some sort of the observation takes place in natural setting. It may be termed as uncontrolled. There is some sort of errors. No attempt is made to use precision instruments. Some sort of errors are included, or some sort of mistakes are carried out. Uncontrolled observation. Okay. Next, interview method. By this method, you are collecting the data, that is personal interview. Personal interview method requires a person known as interviewer asking questions generally in a face-to-face contact to the other person. It is personal interview. Structured interview, again systematic asking the questions is structured interview. Unstructured interview, again there is a problem with the system, there is a problem with error, all those things will be involved. Okay. Clinical interview. The clinical interview is concerned with the broad underlying feelings or motivation with the course of individual life experience. Okay. So these are some merits of interview method. Okay. More information and the two in the greater depth can be obtained. Interviewer by his own skill can overcome the resistance. If any of the respondents, the interviewer method can be made to yield an almost perfect sample of general population. There is a greater flexibility under this method as opportunity to restrict to questions is always there, and all those things. Okay. These merits and demerits, okay, you people can carry out. So next comes is prerequisites and basic tenets of interviewing. What are the basic tenets of interviewing? Prerequisites. For successful implementation of interview method, interviewer should be carefully selected, trained and briefed. Okay, when a person is going to ask a question or respondent is responding him, he should be thoroughly trained. He should have proper set of skills, what the question to be asked. They should be honest, sincere, hardworking, impartial and must possess the technical competency and necessary practical experience, because he is going to collect the data and further that is used into the research. If he is dishonest and the collecting the data, if there is some sort of errors or there is a problem, then it may lead to havoc. Okay. Occasional field checks should be made to ensure that interviewers are neither cheating nor deviating from instructions given to them for performing their job efficiently. In addition, some provision should also be made in advance so that appropriate action may be taken if some of the selected respondents refuse to cooperate, are not available when such interviewer calls upon them. Okay. So these are the prerequisites when you are having basic tenets of interviewing. When you are hiring a person for interviewing, these all characters will play a role. He should be honest, hardworking, he should not have bias, he should not be cheater. Clear? He should have handle his job efficiently, effectively. Clear? Then only the process of your data collection will be smooth. Okay, there are many points, around 8 points. Next comes is telephone interview, where the collection of data is done with contact with the phone, and respondents will respond to you. It is widely used everywhere, plus plays important part in industrial survey, particularly in developed regions. Because what happens, as I said, some sort of data cannot be revealed easily from the government. They have confidential data, or there are some prohibited areas where you cannot go there and get the data and come back. That time you have to depend on the phone call, you have to give a telephone call and ask the data and then write down. Okay. What is the merits of this? It is more flexible in comparison to mailing method. It is faster than other methods, quick way of obtaining information. It is cheaper than personal interviewing method. Recall is easy, callbacks are simple and economical. There is high rate of response, everything compared to mailing. Replies can be recorded, interviewer can explain requirements more easily at time. Access can be gained, no field staff is required. Proper communication can be done, proper answers can be collected, and exact that person you get, right? But demerit is little time is given to the respondent to consider the answers. Interview period is not likely to exceed 5 minutes in more cases. Surveys are restricted to respondents who have telephone facilities. Extensive geographical coverage may get restricted by cost consideration. It is not suitable for intensive surveys where comprehensive answers are required. Possibility of bias of interview is relative more, and questions have to be short. Okay, some demerits are there. Okay, these are some guidelines for successful interview. What are the guidelines? Okay. Data to questionnaire. What happens? You are posing some question here and collecting the data, collecting the answer from that person. The questionnaire consists of number of questions printed or typed in definite order or form of sets. Then it is mailed to the respondent and expected to read and do. This is what I used to consider in my research. I used to do the same thing. Have some questions, mail them. They'll answer to that. Okay. There are some merits as well as demerits. So some main aspects of questionnaire is, okay, essential of good questionnaire is how it should be. Collection of data through schedule, because schedule is nothing but you make a timetable per forma containing a set of questions. Then it is filled by enumerators. Enumerators are nothing but the person who have hired for this purpose only. Those people will sit and do this work, go to the respondent, put them these questions, get the answers from that and bring back. Okay, this is by schedules. Okay, there is a difference between questionnaire and schedules. What happens in questionnaire? What happens in schedules? Okay. And there is a guidelines for constructing questionnaire schedule. Okay. Some other data collection, warranty cards, how you do with store audits, pantry audits, how you do with consumer panels, use of mechanical device, project. These are some secondary things. And the secondary data is nothing but already it is available in the internet, available in the books, or somebody has already done and kept with them. Collecting such things comes under secondary data. It may be the publication of central government or local governments, foreign governments or international bodies and their subsidiary organization, technical and trade journals, books, magazines and newspaper, reports and publications. These all comes under secondary. We normally do secondary data collection in the literature part, but when you are going with field survey, some sort of case studies, then you have to depend on primary data. This is the data collection part. Okay. Some important characteristics of secondary data: reliability of data, suitability and adequacy. How it should be, how reliable it should be, how suitable it should be, and how adequate it should be. Some selection of an appropriate method of data collection is nature and scope of object, availability of fund, time factor, precision required. Some case study methods are there, which you people can get through the notes. Okay, already I have shared the notes, so there you can easily get this. Okay. The next class will go with errors. Okay, what are these sampling errors? What are type of sampling errors? Survey errors, respondent error, administrative error, classifying survey, research method, total quality management satisfaction. Then we'll go with questionnaire design. Again the same thing will repeat, personal interview and all those things. Last chapter is very important, where we deal with IPR, intellectual property right, copyright, trademark, how to write the report, significance and report, so on. Okay, so Unit 2 and Unit 3. Unit 2 is research design with research problem identification. Third unit is sample survey, sample design. Okay, so go through this Unit 2 and Unit 3 thoroughly. Okay, if there is any doubt, you can just ping me. I'll just, if you want, I'll just explain it back. Okay, so the next class will have unit 4, that is errors, and then we can go with unit number 5. Thank you.